Hello my hacker friends, this is Tacit Panda, and this is my first video walkthrough, hopefully the first of many. I'm going to be working on Amaterasu on the Proving Grounds Play platform. A great platform if you're just getting started out. They have a free tier and they also have a paid tier as well. From what I understand, this is one of the first boxes that OffSec had produced in-house for their Proving Grounds labs, and kudos to them. It was definitely a lot of fun. Give you a little background on me, Tacit Panda. I've been in IT for a little over 8 years, and within the last year and a half, I started to focus more on information security, predominantly on the red team side of things. With this box, we got a foothold by uploading some authorized keys, or uploading a authorized keys file, and getting access via SSH. And then we took a look at the cron tab, found a script that was running, and found that script to be updating the path for the user. We used that to add a malicious binary into that pathway, and then use that binary to set an SUID bit for another binary, which gave us privilege escalation. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so one of the first things that I like to do after getting connected is I want to make sure I have a variable set for the IP address of the box that I'm attacking. Now, with this variable set, it just makes it easier whenever we're typing out long commands. So, idea, go echo $IP, and if we take a look back at our web page here, that is going to be the IP address that we're going to be attacking. The good thing about this and where that's helpful is it's like setting up your workspace. And when you set up your workspace, it makes it easier to kind of flow through and gather information and be able to do it in a meaningful way and in an organized way. Generally what I do is I create a folder to store all of the scans and outputs that I want to have. And then we move on to actually attacking. Now, after we noted the IP address, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to run an nmap scan. What I like to do first is I like to run what's called an all-port scan, or at least that's what I call it. And I like to do an all-port scan because there could be ports that are open outside of the default ports that nmap scans. Now, I already ran this, so let's take a look at it. I'll do cat all-port nmap. And as we can see here, we have a lot of ports that are being output. A lot of them are saying that they're closed, which is fine. We have some down here that are open, that are unknown. And then we have FTP at the top. We know that's open too. One thing interesting about that I want to point out is that with these ports here at the bottom, like this 25022, this 40080, that leads me to believe that it might be something like security through obscurity, if that makes sense. So it looks like maybe they had moved some popular ports to higher port numbers so that they're not easily guessed or just kind of run through. So we're going to keep that in mind for now. Now, after we run an all-port scan, the next thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get version numbers and maybe run some default scripts. And that's what I call my deep scan. It's definitely going to take a little bit longer, but with the output that we get, we'll be able to make a better determination of where our attack path could be. So I'm going to clear this out here, and we'll do, I already ran the deep scan, but to give you an idea of what the command is, we'll do -p-. Okay. So the -p- here is for all ports. That's what we use for our all port scan. And then we have default scripts that are being run with the -S_C and then -S_V for version enumeration. And that's helpful just in case there's something that's out of date and we could possibly find an exploit path with that. Now, just like the last one, I already ran that. So let's do cat deep scan nmap. And we get a lot of gobbledygook here at the end. Looks like part of our determination was right. 4080 is an HTTP port. The 80 at the end being appended, which is what I'm used to seeing when it comes to HTTP. Get up here towards the top. We have 33414, which I'm not familiar with. It's running something called workzug. which I'm probably butchering that name. I'm very sorry about that. And then up above that, we have, we were right again. We have SSH on 25022. So that's something you want to keep in mind moving forward, because if you try to connect just by, doing SSH user at, it's going to try to connect to the default 22 port, which is closed according to Nmap. Let's start at the top. Looks like we got FTP, so we're going to check that out. We'll do FTP, and we'll try for anonymous login. I think it did say, yeah, so anonymous FTP login is allowed. So whenever you log in anonymously to an FTP server, it's just anonymous. And I have $IP at the end because, of course, that's my variable. But if you didn't have a variable set, then you would just replace that with, what's our port here? 192.168.241.249. So you would just replace that with the IP address for the attack target. Okay, it's saying specify a password, but because it's anonymous login, we can leave that blank. Just hit enter, and it says login successful. Let's try some basic commands, see if we can get a listing. Entering extended passive mode. Okay, so boarded that. I hit dir, so maybe it's extended passive mode. So I don't 100% remember what extended passive mode is, but it does look like this might be a rabbit hole. Reason being is because it's taken a while for the command to run. Generally, if you're in an FTP server, it should return it right back. So we're just gonna back out of this. Bye. And we're gonna mark that probably as a rabbit hole. We have some ports down here, like we've got a 33414 that's got HTTP options, so that looks like something. Let's check this. Let's check this port. 40,080. We're gonna go back to our web terminal here. 2.168. I have terrible memory with this stuff sometimes. 241, 249. :40080. Whenever you want to dictate a port that you navigate to via browser, you want to append the end of the IP address or the end of the whatever the host name is with the actual port that you want to visit. Okay, we see we got something that popped up here. Mozilla is cool. Mozilla is in fact pretty cool. Doesn't look like much of anything. If we take a look at the page source, looks pretty straightforward. I don't see anything that pops out there. Okay, let's try to go for what was that WorkZug port? First, let's try to figure out what that is. So, a big part of whenever you're attacking anything like that, you want to get as much information as possible on your target before you start really poking and prodding at it. Let's see, let's just do a Google search. You're probably going to see some stuff. Obviously, I've already done this box. I've already gotten rooted. But you're definitely going to see some stuff that shows that you've visited before, but I just want to kind of walk you through the methodology. So just a heads up, not now or at any point in time is this ever going to be, or am I ever going to put out a video where I kind of just breeze through it and type out a bunch of commands and play some music in the background. I like to actually show people where the methodology is going and where my mind state is when I'm attacking, and also want to describe in detail what specific commands I'm running and their flags, because at the end of the day, you're here to learn something. So WorkZug. Etymology work stuff. Okay. Comprehensive WSGI web application library. Stuff. WorkZug doesn't force any dependencies. Okay. If we look back at our... Okay, so first off, it looks like the most recent version is this 2.3x. And if we look back at our terminal with our output of our deep scan, this looks like 2.23, so that might be something there. So let's go back to... Sorry about that. I realized I didn't have the web screen up. But yeah, as you can see, it says not found, and that's okay, because it's still accessible. We're getting a response from it. We're just not getting a web page from it. So let's go back to our terminal here. And the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to run directory scan. Now, or directory brute forcing. There's a lot of different tools that you can use for this. One of my favorites is GoBuster. I like GoBuster. It runs pretty smoothly. And the command for that is going to be GoBuster dir to indicate that we're going to be brute forcing and looking for directories. And then you have a word list. There are built-in word lists in Kali Linux, and they are set in the user share word list directory. So we're going to use a common one, directory list 2.3 small, and then we do the -u to dictate our IP and our port, and then we go with the output of gobuster.txt. Now we're going to start with workzug, because I feel like, or that port, because I feel like that's going to bring something up. And after running this previously, I found out it did. So I had two directories here that come from the GoBuster scan. Both of them have unique sizes, and I'm getting a status 200 on it, which means that it's actually serving up a page. So let's check out the first one, -help. And if you see here, let's zoom in a little bit so you can see. We have what looks like instructions on how to operate within this server. Get our general info, our help, this listing right here, and then we have two at the bottom that look the most intriguing. A file listing, where we can list files, and then an option where we can upload files. So both of those are definitely going to be helpful. Let's try to take a look at the list of files first. Get that little edge there. Needs to go. Oh crap, wrong thing. All right, let's try this again. Paste, file lister, temp. Aha. Now, what we have here is within file list, there is a command option for dir, which lists the directory depending on what directory we're in. Let's see if we can look at our home directory. We can. And we see that we have a user Alfredo, so that's something that we're going to want to keep in mind. Let's see if we can look inside of Alfredo's folder. And we can. So we see we've got bash profile RC, looks like the local doc text, that's our flag. .ssh, that's going to be his SSH folder. REST API and bash history. So let's see if we can list the contents of .ssh. And that's good. We've got an IDRSA file and an IDRSA.pub. Now, initially when I did this box, what you're going to do is you're going to try to start opening up files to see if you can actually look inside of them. For example, do etc password, and we get an internal server error. And what I realized while I was doing this box is the reason being is that it will list files in a directory, but it won't actually open the file for you. So with that being said, let's go back to our help. And we'll notice again that we have a post file upload, which means we can upload files. Now, understanding how SSH works, especially within that folder, we realize that there is the option or the ability to have a file with multiple keys in it. So what we do next is we're going to want to generate our own key pair. We do that by using ssh-keygen. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to ask you to enter the file in which to save the key. You should dictate the actual pathway that you have a lot of your documents and output saved in, and the reason being is you don't want it to conflict with your own SSH key on your system. I like to keep a lot of that stuff separately because, you know, if you do run into an issue, you could really screw stuff up. Now, I did already generate this, so we're just going to Control-C that. I'm going to ls to show you the two files that are generated are IDRSA and IDRSA.pub. Now .pub is going to be your public key, and in order to develop an authorized keys file, what we're going to do is we're going to do echo. Oh, sorry. Let's do cat. Sorry about that. Cat idrsa.pub, and then append that to a file titled authorized keys. Now what we're going to do next is we're going to upload this file, the authorized keys file, to alfredos.ssh folder. Now there are a couple ways that you could do this. The way that I like to do it, probably because I like to make things extremely difficult for no reason, is I use a curl command to upload the file. So that curl command listed here, we're going to use these flags. First, we're going to do curl-l. That's so that curl will follow any redirects. -I to include the header response back from the server, and -x to include our request method, which is going to be post. -h is going to be our header. That's going to be content type multi-part form data. And then we're going to get down to where we really want to be, and that's the -f for file. And that's the specific file. You're going to want to put your entire pathway into there. That's the specific file you're going to be uploading. And then file name is where you're going to be uploading the file to. Now, one part that I got really caught up on when I was uploading files or trying to get the file that I wanted into a specific location is I wasn't sure exactly how to do that. Whenever you're working with curl, you can use the file name section and dictate the exact pathway, home, alfredo.ssh, authorized keys. You can dictate the exact pathway where you want the file to land, and that's helpful to know. And then finally, we're going to have the address and the directory that we're going to be curling our post request to so that we can upload this file. Now, I'm going to show you something that happened to me initially as well. Instead of, well, let me put it this way. All I tried to do is just upload just authorized keys. And you'll see the response that we get is a 400 bad request. And it says message allowed file types are TXT, PDF, PNG, JPG, JPEG, and GIF. In order to get around this, essentially what it's saying, what the server's saying is that these are the only file types that they're going to allow you to upload. So in order to get around this, what we do is we rename the file, the authorized keys file, to authorizedkeys.txt. Now we can't upload it like that because SSH is not going to recognize it with that file name extension. So what we do is we dictate authorizedkeys.txt, but when it comes to the file name and the upload path, we don't include the extension. Once we send that, we see that the file has successfully uploaded. Now let's go back to our web and confirm this. If you remember, we can use the file-list command dir equals to list files. Go ahead, highlight that. Here, paste, and we're going to go to home, alfredo.ssh. Bingo. As you can see, our authorized keys file has been uploaded. That authorized keys file has our public IDRSA key. Because of that, when we come back to our terminal, we'll do SSH IDRSA. Now that's to dictate the private IDRSA key that matches your public key that you uploaded. You have to dictate that because otherwise it's going to use the default IDRSA key, which is in your personal SSH folder, and it's not going to match with the key on the server, and it's going to kick you out. If we remember back to our scans, the port that was open was 25022. The user we're connecting as is Alfredo, and then of course our variable at the end. Sure we want to connect, we hit yes. And with that being said, we are Alfredo and we're connected to the server. From here, we cat out our local flag, and we officially have our foothold. Okay, and now that we have our foothold, we're going to start poking around on this box to see if we can find some way of privilege escalation. Now, it's easy to do things like maybe upload linps and do some basic scans to try to determine where there's a vulnerability, but I don't like to rely on tools. I like to know commands that I can use on the system that not only won't raise a whole lot of alarms, but will also reveal some information to us that will give us the pathway that we need for privilege escalation. One of the first things that I like to do is I like to see if there are any super user ID bits set. An SUID bit is a bit added to the permissions of a binary that will allow you, through some finagling, will allow you to get privilege escalation and launch a root shell. One of the ways that we can find some of these binaries is by using the find command. So we'll do find, start at the root, perm 4123, that's perm 4000, that's the permission that we're looking for. And then right after we do that, we're going to want to output any errors that we get into dev null, because sometimes you'll run into errors and it'll just populate your screen. It'll be really hard to read. Okay, so this is the list of binaries that I've found. You can see user bin, user sbin. This is a list of binaries that we have that have the SUID bits set, and there isn't really anything that pops out. We got PK exec here. Cron tab has it. Nothing is really, nothing that really stands out to me. But keep in mind what you see here, because that's going to move into the next thing that we do. So outside of looking for SUID bits, there's a lot of other things we want to do. Check our local permissions as a user, see if we can do things like sudo l, but we don't have Alfredo's password, so it's not going to let us do that. Let's go ahead and click past this. Correct passwords, okay. Besides doing things like that, you're going to want to check for running processes on the system. But what got me privilege escalation was I found something in cron tab. So cron tab is a way of setting up automated task in a Linux system. It's one of the two ways. There's another way you can do it with systemd, but we're not going to get into that. So what I did was I hit cat tc cron tab, and I found this script running as root. So you see where it's the example of job definition. That's something you're going to want to keep in mind. It shows minute, hour, days, month. That's the frequency or day of the week. The frequency in which the command is executed, the username that executes the command, and then the command to be executed. So it looks like every minute the root user is running this script. Let's see what that script does. So on first sight, it looks like a bash script. We determined that from the .sh at the end here. And if you look at this script, I'll explain to you what it's doing. First, at the very first line, we've got our shebang that dictates to the script where it should go to start running this the below commands. And then we have export path, home Alfredo REST API, colon. So what it's doing is it's appending the path, this path, to the overall, to the root path that's being run, or it's appending this path to the environment under root. So whenever we say environment, let's do print, oh, sorry, env. Let's see if I can find it here. Here it is. Okay. So right here at the bottom, you see where it says path. Now, what this means is that if you ever type in a command, let's just say, for example, like what I just used, cat. What it does is it looks, the terminal or the session starts looking through each of these folders. And the first time it lands on the binary cat, it runs it from that folder, whether that's the cat that you actually want or not. So let's clear out here. Go back to this script. So we know that it's appending the path, and it's home Alfredo REST API. And if I'm not mistaken, because it's in our home folder, let's see. Let's just try makedir test. Because it's in our home folder, we have write access to it. Now, there's other ways that I could have figured that out. LSAL. Oops, sorry. Wrong one. Let's go back. If we look down here at REST API, we do have write privileges on it. So let's go back and take a look at that script again. So first it exports a path, then it changes directory to home Alfredo REST API, and then it creates a tarball of all of the files within that directory. So this is how I got privilege escalation, and you might too. First thing I did was I went to the REST API folder, and then let's do nano tar. Oh, got caps on. I'm gonna hit a shebang. We're gonna do bin bash. Now, if you remember earlier in the video, I showed you how I was looking for SUID bits. If we take a look at this website, it's a very handy website. It's called gtfobins.github.io. This is a super useful website because what it does is it shows you a list of binaries that you can use to bypass local security restrictions, just like it says here at the top. Now to go back to our terminal, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to set that SUID bit to one of the binaries. And we know we're going to be able to do this because the root user, is running the script, the backup-flask.sh script. And because the root user is running it, anything that runs beyond or within that script is going to run with root privileges. So in order to set a SUID bit, we do chmod u plus s, and then we'll do user bin and one of my favorites, find. Okay, so we'll do control X, Y. Now, if we look here, we'll see that we have tar within this directory. Now, tar is already on the system. However, because that backup-flask.sh script is appending the pathway at the very beginning, it's going to stop within the REST API folder first to try to see if it finds a tar binary, and it will, but it's not the actual tar binary, it's my super evil tar binary. Next thing we're going to want to do is make sure that that binary is set to be executable. You can tell now that it is, changed colors on us. But if ever you don't have that, don't have the ability to see it color-wise, we can see now at the end with this dash, with this X, that it's executable. Now that that's set up, we're going to wait. I think it said the script runs every minute. With that being said, it should have run already. I'm going to use Control R to go back to my find that I ran earlier to see if I could find those SUID bits. Aha, and if you notice, now user bin find has been added to that list. If we go back to our web terminal, we're going to search among these binaries for find SUID. It says if the binary has the SUID bit set, it does not drop the elevated privileges and may be abused to access the file system, escalate, or maintain privilege access as an SUID backdoor. All right, since we have find, we see what our command is down here. And I'm going to just type it out. We're going to do find dot exec bin sh -p / semicolon, okay, semicolon, dash quit. And just like that, folks, we are root. We've officially owned this box, and if we go to our root directory, we can open up, the root flag. This box has officially been owned. Well, that's going to be it for this video, and that's going to be it for this box. I hope you guys enjoyed. I really appreciate you coming by and taking a look at it, and I hope you learned something along the way. You can follow me on Medium, where I post a lot of my write-ups. It's that should actually be under at Cyberpunk Panda. That's going to be listed right there on the screen. And you can also find me on Twitter at the same handle. Thank you very much, everybody, and as always, keep on hacking.